can't complain. Just wish he was here with us doing the show, and hopefully he'll be doing it again. So as you can see, in honor of Steve today, I'm wearing his. Let me see if I can turn this around. His Thurman Munson jersey, and just so you know, from Steve and our family, no question about who wore number 15. And Rob, yeah, there's no name on the jersey, of course, but there are patches here. This is the 50th anniversary patch of Yankee Stadium. And I have a patch on the bottom here from Cooperstown, right? It's hard to say, but anyway. So I'm wearing this for Steve. I've worn my Messier and Roger Staubach jersey for Steve, and those are our guys, not just his guys. They're my guys too. So thank you very much, and I tell Steve every time that everybody reaches out, and it's heartwarming, to be quite honest. So we're going to jump in. There's a lot going on in this week of sports, right? But we're going to start with the monologue. And the monologue this week, and I'm going to be one and done with this because all these great sports and all these guys that just keep playing and playing and playing, you hear this term one more time in the NBA called load management. It's going to send me off into a nonstop vomiting fest because it's unbelievable. We're talking about guys that are making 40 some odd millions of dollars a year and they can't play a full schedule. And who loses out on this? The fan, right? The NBA is all about the NBA. And I love the only aspect I love about the NBA is the talent that is prevalent in the game today. I mean, these kids are just remarkably talented. It starts with Giannis, and can't dismiss LeBron, of course. But if you think LeBron James is really hurt, like, you know that he's just resting up. He's 38 years old. So this is it's making a mockery of it. And I think back on the Knicks when Steve and I were just young kids and we watched the Busher and Bradley and Reed and Clyde Frazier and Earl Monroe. These guys played every single night. And believe me, they weren't making $40 million or even back then equivalent of $40 million. And, yeah, people could say, well, their careers have been, were cut short because of that. Well, that's the game. It's, those Knicks didn't play till 38 and 39 years old, right? Because they never took off. So you could say what you want about that. I just think it's unbelievable. When you look at like playoff hockey is coming upon us, and we're certainly going to talk about hockey in a little bit. How many games does Mika Zibanejad take off or Connor McDavid? None. These guys come, and that's what people pay for. They come to see the best players of their sport, and the NBA just says, we don't care. You think you're coming to see Kevin Durant versus LeBron James or Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving play against Giannis? No. You're going to be shortchanged because they're going to be sitting on the bench with a fake boot. So anyway, that's my monologue for this week, which of course is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York. And again, they've been a loyal listener for the show and a sponsor of the show for many years, and I can't thank them enough. So we're going to jump right into it. There is a lot going on, so I got a bunch of stuff to talk about, but let's start off with, March Madness finally came to a close, and not finally because it was awesome. But these guys, and women, the finals, and I'll start off with the women because I told you I've watched more of that than I have in years past, but there was the intriguing matchup with Angel Reese of LSU and Caitlin Clark from Iowa. And, Kim Mulkey, takes over LSU 2 years ago. And, they won 8 games that season and now they're national champions. It was a good game, but LSU was a better team. They hit the shots, and Caitlin Clark couldn't do it all on her own. And then there was the ending with the Angel Reese situation really kind of getting in the face of Caitlin Clark. And again, I don't know if it was right or wrong, or there's a personal grudge there, but it was something that, when you look at sportsmanship kind of thing, it kind of looked like it went off the rails a little bit. And, Angel Reese is a great player, and I'm going to touch base on random points of interest about Angel Reese and LSU in a little bit. But that was, a good game, and LSU's the champ, and this Kim Mulkey is just, she gets it done. She's becoming the next Pat Summitt of women's basketball, and, we all know who that was, right? And then the men's final, of course, right? We talked about the Final Four with Florida Atlantic and San Diego State and UConn and Miami, and, the final kind of – actually, I had UConn to make the final, but I thought Florida Atlantic and the Cinderella story would have continued for a while, but they got beat by San Diego State, who had to take on UConn in the final. And again, here's one of my pet peeves. The game didn't start till 9:30 on the East Coast, which I don't know. You're losing the younger audience. And I just saw this the other day that it was actually the lowest rated NCAA final ever. And I'm not sure why. I mean, UConn, when you look at their run, 5 titles in the past 20, some odd years, that's quite a remarkable run. They move up into the echelon with the Kentuckys and the North Carolinas and the Dukes. And what a job Dan Hurley did. I mean, you just couldn't help but root for him. With the pedigree he's got, his father being one of the greatest high school basketball coaches and mentors of players of all time, and his brother Bobby, obviously, one of Coach K's favorite all-time players, and played with Grant Hill, and so the winning pedigree, goes. He was a Seton Hall player, Danny Hurley was, and had a couple of little stops before he got to UConn, but he put those guys on the floor. They believed, and they took it. They really, everyone says, well, it was a lousy game. No, there was some good runs. San Diego State hung in there a little bit. And then UConn, if you look at, the talent they had, Sonoga, who ended up being kind of the most outstanding player of the tournament, and rightfully so. It was just a great matchup. Couldn't miss it. I haven't missed one in 50 some odd years, to be quite honest, which is a long time. But it's one of the few times, maybe count on my thumb how many times Steve and I didn't watch the NCAA final together. And that was a big miss, a big black hole for me not being able to watch it with him. But it was excellent. And a couple little backstories. Not only congratulations again to Danny Hurley and the Hurley family. It's just a great win for UConn, and these guys just put themselves in basketball lore. I mean, you'll never forget these names, and it's been great. But one of the backstories of this was it was also Jim Nance's final college basketball final call, and I got to give a shout out to him. I mean, he has lived the life of Riley when it comes to broadcasting. I mean, this guy literally calls the NCAA championship and the tournament, prior to the final. And then he goes right to Augusta, and he's calling the Masters right now, which I can't wait to talk about in a little bit. But I just wanted to give a shout out to college basketball and one other guy. I don't know if this means that they're going to break up the Bill Raftery and Grant Hill thing, but I thought those 3 guys calling the games were just knowledgeable. Obviously, what Grant Hill's record is, and Bill Raftery, 83 maybe years old, and still sharp as a tack. And I always been very fond of Bill Raftery because I know he's very close with Hubie Brown. That's the Niagara tie-in for me. But I hope that doesn't spell the end for Raftery. But if it is, Bill, congratulations. You are an absolutely outstanding color analyst for college basketball. And And I also want to give a shout out to Jay Wright. I mean, if he doesn't have to ever coach and go through the stress of coaching college basketball, or certainly not the NBA, I mean, he is comfortable in that chair in the studio, and he's knowledgeable, and he knows everything about the game, and he can make, quite a living sitting in that chair instead of going through the rigmaroles of college basketball, recruiting, the whole thing, because that's a full-time job. But Jay Wright won a couple national championships, and it was a great run for college basketball. March Madness did not disappoint. So I want to move right on, because right behind me, the Masters is on. They're finishing up the second round. With this weather in Augusta has been almost unprecedented. Obviously, it's almost like British Open conditions. And it was a fortunate thing. These two monstrosity of trees fell down almost in the middle of a gallery, but it was just a window. And maybe that was fate that it fell and nobody got hurt, thank goodness. But, the weather has just been terrible. These guys are finishing up their second rounds right now as we speak. And, you look at the leaderboard, you got Bruce Koepka, live golfer. And I'm only kidding about that, because I know one of our loyal listeners kills me about why I'm down on this live golf. And I'm not going to go into it because I've talked about it verbatim on the show for forever. But you got Rahm and Koepka up there, and how about this kid Bennett, the amateur? Obviously not gonna win the Masters. Today is moving day, but it's kind of been moving morning, and extra bonus coverage, Mike Garvey. So how great was that? And we're gonna see. I right behind us, but we're here doing the show. So if Mike has any comments or updates, whether Tiger made the cut or not. I know Justin Thomas fell out and just missed the cut as well. I think it was around +3. Justin finished up, had a rough round today, but the weather was brutal. Course was playing extremely long, but I like Jon Rahm's chances. This guy, and I just saw the interview with him before we came on the air. He's a polished kid. He's a determined kid. And these are the young guns. These are the real deal guys. This is the next Nicholas Palmer kind of thing. You get guys like Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler, and things are great. Colin Morikawa, all these guys. Cameron Young, another up and coming guy on the PGA Tour. So it's just been great. The weather's been a little bizarre. Couple of notable backstories from the Masters as well. It's the first Masters I can remember in how many years? Probably at least 25, maybe 30. Sir Nick Faldo was not in the booth with Jim Nantz. And, I miss him. He was witty and obviously knows the game, 3-time Masters champ himself. But we missed him. But, a good fill-in. This guy who's taken over for him, Trevor Immelman. I like him. He really knows the game as well. And, he's going to be the partner now for Jim Nantz going forward. And I think that's pretty cool. Couple other little things, I saw at the par 3, and I got to bring this up because it reminds me of my grandchildren, right? I wish I was a professional golfer. Out on the course, the par 3 tournament, which is always Wednesday before the tournament. And they bring their kids, and they're all dressed up in the white, caddy uniforms that the pro caddies wear right now. It was cute as hell. And Seamus Power had not one, but 2 holes in one on the par 3 tournament. So you got to give him credit for that. I mean, I've never had a hole in one. Actually, Steven did have a hole in one. So he must have closed his eyes, hit it, and it rolled in the cup. But it was fun. So let's see. Today's called moving day, right? And that means, this final Saturday before tomorrow, Sunday, and I'm sure the weather's I know it's supposed to be lousy today, but it's Masters Sunday at Augusta, and I'm sure the sun will be out. May not be as warm as it could be, but it's on right now, and second round comes up, and the final starts tomorrow on CBS at 2:00. So, I mean, where else would you be? It's Easter dinner and you sit and watch the Masters. Good stuff. So let's jump into a couple other quick things. The NHL, right? We're winding down the regular season. Very excited in New York. You have the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers all making the playoffs. And it's going to be a tough road to Stanley Cup. And again, I keep to give these guys credit. They come back and they play every, some nights, sometimes 2 times, back to back, and then they get a day off, and then they got to play another game. And these guys are warriors, but nothing like Stanley Cup hockey, playoff hockey. It's coming up, season's winding down, and here's a note from the NHL. It's the first time since 1995 that 3 teammates on the same team scored over 100 points. It was the Edmonton Oilers with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Ryan Hopkins Nugent or Nugent Hopkins. Actually, let me see which I keep forgetting what his name was, but yeah, it's Nugent Hopkins, right? So that's 300-point scorers, which is kind of rare. 100 points is kind of rare in the NHL altogether now. And I started to think when I first saw that, I said, who was the last team? And it was the 95 Pittsburgh Penguins, which was Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, and Ron Francis. And I'm sure it happened a couple times with Gretzky, Messier, and Anderson and Curry. They may even had 4 guys with 100 points. They were that good back then. But the NHL playoffs begin in probably 10 days. And like I said, it's potentially 4 7-game series, and they'll be brutal. And you got a preview the other night of the Rangers Lightning. There's just a lot of animosity between these 2 teams. They got great history, but Tampa's got a few Stanley Cup rings, and the Rangers don't. Not since the Messier day, right? So if you're not a hockey guy, you'll be a hockey guy after you watch the playoffs. So let's jump right into, Rob, Major League Baseball. And I got like I said, my Thurman Munson jersey on. So the season's, 10 games in pretty much. Judge, a couple home runs. How about the polar bear, right? Pete Alonso's got 4 for the Mets already. Philly's getting off to a rough start, but it's a 162 game season, but they're getting hit with injuries left and right. So, the fact that they made the World Series last year was good. I know. Of course, when you hear Nugent Hopkins, you think of Ted Nugent. And Ted Nugent was one of my favorite rockers of all time. Saw him in Giant Stadium in 1979, believe it or not. Hard to believe, but it's true. So anyway, Major League Baseball is underway, and you got to think about what the Mets are doing, right? They invested in Verlander, and he started the season not pitching. You don't know. I mean, they signed a 39-year-old guy, putting all their stock. Listen, McNeil and Nimmo and Alonso and Lindor, these guys all have good years. Is that enough to push the Mets, to the World Series? And I'm not sure about that. What do you got, Rob?
No, I figured I'd wait until golf and hockey was over.
Yeah, the important things.
Yeah. Go Devils.
All right. So that's underway, but Major League Baseball is, like I said, 10 games in already. The Yanks are, hovering around 500. And Andrew Volpe, listen, leave the kid alone. He's learning as he's batting. So he's off to a slow start, but he's the kid. They're vested in him, and like I said, Judge is going to be the guy to carry this team. But you got to be careful about jogging before the game, and just ask Josh Donaldson about that. Pulls a hamstring while jogging. Well, so the Yankees got to move some things around. So they'll put LeMahieu at third, and they'll be okay. They'll win enough games. Rodon will come back. But I watched the game yesterday. They had the lead against Baltimore, and the Corderos came in, and one kid came in, he threw like 4 wild pitches in 10 pitches. I was like, whoa, yeah. But I wanted to bring up this catcher, this Houshman for Baltimore. He's a good-looking prospect, and Baltimore is a good-looking team. 2 years ago they had one of the worst teams in the league, and now look at them now. I think they're going to be a contender in the American League, believe it or not. I just don't know if they have the pitching to go with that lineup. But Milwaukee Brewers, right, off to a really good start. Do we have to worry about them knocking off the Yankees? I don't think so.
So, Jim, quick question.
Yeah.
Am I the only one kind of happy that Donaldson's on the IL?
Well, that's a lot of what people say, and I look at it this way. Yes, what a disappointment at in batting, but he is a Gold Glove third baseman still. He is excellent. He does contribute on that aspect, but you know what? That's not enough in today's game. You got to play both ways, like Judge does at the plate, and he's diving for balls in the outfield. So no, I don't know that it helps the Yankees. That a lot of that depends on whether Volpe can start figuring some of these major league pitchers that he's not accustomed to facing. So I don't know, Rob. We only got 142 games left, or maybe more than that, 150.
More than that.
We'll keep you posted on that. But the Mets, I did see this kid Senga, the Japanese pitcher that they signed. He looks pretty good. Saw his first start and really kind of mowed him down. So he could be a factor for keeping the Mets, in contention while Verlander and Scherzer go on and off the DL for the better part of the next 5 months, which obviously will happen. So we'll see about that. But I will say this, Rob, I know I brought this thing up with these rule changes and the bigger bases and all that kind of stuff. When you're watching 2 games of Major League Baseball, like sometimes when the Mets and the Yankees are on at the same time, right? Obviously, that's where remote controls come into play, and you could flip back and forth. This pitch clock thing, I know it's going to cause problems down the road, but it has made it like when you flip from one, see the next pitch on the Met game, and then you go back to the Yankees, the guy's actually throwing. It's not like they are moving this game along. Like, I don't know if I think it could be, it's going to be hurtful to the pitchers. The pitchers have their routines and, but now they're forced to get rid of that ball by a pitch clock. And, but I will say from a remote control, watching the Mets and the Yankees, it's pretty good. You go back and forth and there's usually action going on instead of, guys walking around and picking up rosin bags and fixing their socks and, getting their glue out and all that. What's that? Spider tack and whatever, right?
Well, it also has increased stolen bases as well, which you want to see. You want to see more action in the game. So there's more stolen bases now, and that's good for the game itself.
Yeah, I know. I think that's something I got a problem with. That you can only throw over to first base 2 times or something, or 3 times tops. And that, that automatically means that the guy can get a longer lead, doesn't have to worry about getting picked off. So I think that's something that in Major League Baseball, stealing bases was tough. It was strategic, and you had to do it all right. Now, that's basically, you're right. You're going to see stolen bases go through the roof, right? Ricky Henderson's record will be blown out of the water in 10 years at this pace. But those are the things, the rule changes that I don't like that altered the game. I don't like the bases being bigger because that means you'll see more stolen bases because of guys getting in before the tag. I don't like the rules that actually alter the game, but I do like it from a fan perspective on TV when the Mets and the Yankees are on at the same time.
Well, again, the only drawback, I think I said this before, with this pitching clock is actually at the game itself. People going to these games are complaining that they can't get stuck. They can't go. They get a hot dog. They can't go to the men's room because they're missing like an inning.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly. I saw that point come up. People go, I got to take my kid to the bathroom, and I come back and I miss 3 outs. That's a valid point. That's a valid point for a fan. I mean, the guy's paying enough money to go, right? I mean, he should have it, right? Anyway, so Rob, we unfortunately have to touch base on the NBA, right? Because that season's winding down. Your Knicks and your Nets are both making the playoffs. Knicks look like they're going to open up against Cleveland. And you know what? If Randall's, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if he's not back, I don't know that they have a chance to beat Cleveland. I don't know, outside of Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, scored 40 points 4 games in a row, which was not even done by LeBron James. I thought that was a good little fun fact for the NBA. But we'll see. Even if the Knicks do get by Cleveland, I mean, the road is going through, Fiserv Stadium, the Fiserv Arena in Milwaukee, because that's where Giannis, holds court. So, but your Nets, what do you think? Who are your Nets playing?
Philadelphia.
Okay. Isn't this going to be great, right? This is the James Harden get revenge against that nasty team that traded their entire lineup to get him, pay him a fortune, and the guy won it out in 3 weeks. Disgusting. Disgusting.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm happy from a perspective that, all right, we started out the season with turmoil. Then everybody came back together. We played very well for that one stretch. And then you blew the house apart. But Sean Marks got some pretty damn good pieces back. And you know what? I'm pretty happy that we're a 6 seed. Because once that trade was made, once he got rid of KD and Kyrie, everybody, the Nets are done. They're not even going to make the playoffs. They're not even going to be a play-in team. And, hey, we fought to a 6 seed. So we get a week off to recuperate while 4 other teams got to play.
Yeah, but I'm
very happy about that.
This is what drives me crazy about you Net fans. In the span of 3 years, you guys hated Sean Marks for not doing anything. And then you loved him for getting Harden, Irving, and Durant. And then you hated him because those 3 guys are not teammates that you want on your team. So that blew up. And now you like him again because you got Mikal Bridges playing at an all-star caliber level, which nobody expected. So I don't know. What is it with it? Either you're going to run him out of town or you're not going to run him out of town.
I think Cam Thomas is a huge piece. He has to be re-signed.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, we have an 18-point-something $1 million exception to bring a player back next year.
Okay, but my point is this: Sean Marks. I mean, he can't hold him responsible for Harden, Irvin, and
the whole. It's what the awesome part of the past 2 months have been. We now know who the main culprit is: Kyrie Irving. Look at Dallas.
We've known that.
He ruined it
all along.
He ruined Dallas.
But exactly, I want to talk about that. And, I saw Mark Cuban came out, said he's going to pay Kyrie Irving to stay. And I'm sure Luka Doncic says, not on my watch, you're not,
And they actually, what? I was reading this last night. I'm not sure if they won yesterday. I had to look, I forgot because, I just got up and stuff. But they were actually taking that game last night so they can miss the playoffs altogether.
I know.
Keep their top 10 pick from the Knicks getting it, and then, hopefully get a chance for this kid that's coming in.
And this is why it's difficult for me to even talk about the NBA. It's unbelievable. And if you look at what Kyrie Irving, I don't even know how many games he's played this year. I'm going to guess 40, maybe. That means he makes about $1 million a game, or $500,000 a game to play, and $500,000 to take off. I mean, come on. And you want to pay this guy, and you want to recruit me as an NBA fan to pay those prices to see that kind of player? No, thanks. I'll go to the Ranger game. Thank you. I had to bring it up.
I know.
All right, Rob. So let's move on to our random points of interest, sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. And one point was this situation with LSU winning the national championship, and the president and the first lady say, here's an idea. Let's have Iowa at the White House as well, which is completely breaking with tradition, right? The second place team doesn't get to go to the White House. Caused the big brouhaha with Angel Reese saying, we'll go to the Obamas instead. I mean, this is
Oh, come on.
yeah, you got to take these political
I
things
know.
out of it, right? So they did accept the invitation, and Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes will not be part of that, but that's just a note I wanted to bring up. Rob, couple other things, and this is where I missed.
And Jim, real quick,
Yeah.
real quick. Again, real quick. Both of those players come back next season.
Yes.
That's gonna be an interesting storyline watching those two players next year again.
Oh, don't be surprised if
there's obviously something wrong there. There's obviously jealousy or
of course
something at play with those two players.
Of course, there is a backstory there which we don't know about, but we will find out. And don't be surprised if Iowa and LSU meet in the finals again next year. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. Rob, so the NBA Hall of Fame is, like I was saying, this is where I miss Steve the most, because we got roasted by James Walsh from Long Island about our Hall of Fame picks. Because Steve and I's position are, we're going to read the names and either yay or nay, whether that's a surefire Hall of Fame vote. And it came up with Mr. Walsh pointed out to us when we were doing it with Major League Baseball and Scott Rowland got in. Steve and I kind of both hedged our bets and said, yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe you should wait, kind of thing. But that would have, he's going in by himself, so they had to fill a hole. But the NBA Hall of Fame, and here's a couple names, and I'm going to read them off, and I'm going to say yay or nay, and I'm, Steve's watching the show, so I'll get his opinion. Dwayne Wade.
Yay.
Yay, yes. And I almost hesitated because, I don't know that he was a Larry Bird type, Hall of Famer, but yes, I don't have a problem with him. Dirk Nowitzki, yay. Right? No question there.
No question.
Here's one, Pau Gasol. No.
No.
No. I mean, I don't, and they retired his number. There's guys like Michael Cooper and those players that won championships for the Lakers that don't have their number retired. And Pau Gasol does. Outrageous. Tony Parker, yay. Yes, I had no problem with him. Played on some great teams. Didn't hurt to have Tim Duncan on your team, right? But Tony Parker was the point guard. He was the Walt Frazier of those championship teams. No problem at all. Here's one, and people are going to, I'm sure I'll catch some emails about Jim Valvano, Hall of Fame. And I say no. I'm not dismissing his influence on the cancer, contributions and charities and so forth, but Hall of Fame, no. He was an 8 seed going into the tournament. They won kind of on a fluke. And he's got dirty socks, that followed him all up to that time. So I say no, absolutely not. But Becky Hammond from WNBA, great college player as well. Yay,
She'll be the first women to coach an NBA team. That's coming soon.
Yeah, that's possible. It's actually possible. I can see that happening. Good point. A couple other little points.
Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
Now, you said Paul Gasol, no, right?
Yes.
You know what's going to come down to in another year or two? Like Paul Gasol versus Manu Ginobili. Very similar player.
I think Manu Ginobili's in the Hall of Fame already.
I'm not sure if he's in or not, but very similar player there, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, I'll give you that. Just a couple other observations on some things. This whole situation with Willie McGinnis, right, gets fired by the NFL Network. actually got him on video beating some guy up. It was kind of weird because he was like I like this guy's opinion. I watched him as a player. He was an underrated player. Hall of Famer, maybe not so much, but borderline kind of thing. But that's an odd story. When you lose a guy that you actually like, I can't listen to the Randy Mosses and those guys anymore. But I thought Willie McGinnis was good. I hope he lands back on his feet because I know there's a reason that he went over to that guy. And I was listening the other day because my feelings on this Manning cast and all that. It's so ridiculous, and I don't watch 1 second of it. But this whole Michael K, Alex Rodriguez thing, it's just as ridiculous. I mean, why do you need to watch the game? Don't you want to watch the game and rather hear what those two have to say? And I know we'll get feedback, and Michael K will come after Sports with Mono and Mono as we get bigger and bigger, and say he trashed us, this, that, and the other thing. And I don't dismiss Michael K's success, and I actually enjoy him as a broadcaster for the Yankees. But I can't listen to the talk show anymore. But I just thought that was like, all right, people gonna watch the game to listen to what those two have to say. I just don't see it.
Here's the one difference though between the Manning cast and the what do they call that? The K-Rod cast.
Yeah.
Baseball has a lot of dead time. Well, not so much anymore with the pitch clock, but baseball has a lot of dead time to say stuff. Yeah. Football doesn't. So if I've watched the Manning cast, so I actually don't mind it sometimes because they're really just talking about anything and they, oh, by the way, there's a game on, So it's like you're watching the game and listening to like you're at a bar or something and here.
But I will always, and I've always said this, I don't watch sports. I don't watch the NFL because Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are calling the game. I watch it because I want to watch the game. I want to understand it from a history perspective and where it fits in. So I just don't get it. But if people get it, I mean, ESPN wants to, it's actually on 2 different ESPN channels at the same time. So I don't know who's running the programming over there.
Well, Jay, real quick, do you listen to afternoon sports talk? Like you say, no. you can't listen to Michael K.
I can't listen to Michael K. and I can't listen to Craig Carton.
Well, Craig Carton has been offered.
I know.
You know that, right?
I know.
He's got a big decision to make.
I don't get it. I will tell you this. I do listen on the way in because they actually give sports updates as well. So if you weren't up till midnight, things that happen with, I like the Boomer and Geo show and I like Jerry Recco. And I just like the fact that they're, Geo's kind of funny. Boomer is very knowledgeable in a lot of things, big hockey fan. And there's Jerry Recco. He's an up-and-coming guy. I actually met him at the Rutgers game last year. Nice kid, but that's the only one I listen to. I can't listen to the other ones anymore. I just can't do it. Can't do it. So, Rob, one thing, we college football, and you brought up before that there was some, different what do they call them, mock drafts, right? And, Luke Whippler is a absolute favorite of Sports with Mono and Mono, was on the show, and, his stock goes up and down. It's silly. The kid killed at the combines. He's going to be a number 1, number 2 at the latest draft pick. So, all these mock drafts, I just can't wait to get the draft over with because it drives me nuts when, this guy kills at the combines and then his draft stock goes down. Explain that to me. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy also this week. The flavor of the week seems to be this quarterback from Tennessee, Hooker. All of a sudden, he's coming out of nowhere, and now a lot of teams have him as number 3 on their depth chart, on their quarterback chart.
Yeah, I don't see him going. I don't see him going that high, but yeah, he did have a great year in college football last year, but he's losing that wide receiver, that he had. I can't remember his name, but the guy that scored like 4 touchdowns in one game on bombs from Hooker. It was good.
Yeah.
Good athlete. And with college football, listen, Jim Harbaugh is not sitting, standing pat, right? He lands the 5-star quarterback recruit, Jaden Davis. I don't know what kind of nil money this kid's getting to go to Michigan, but Harbaugh maybe has seen enough of JJ McCarthy or doesn't think he can get him over the top. They made the college football semifinals last year, but that's a big recruit for him. But again, it's how big is your checkbook when we know we're talking about nil stuff, and it's real. It's real. They don't hide it. And Rob, Steve and I always bring up trivia about baseball memorabilia, and you're very big in baseball memorabilia as well, right? We've seen jerseys and going for record amounts. We had a Gretzky jersey. The latest one was the highest price ever paid for a bat, baseball bat. It was Babe Ruth's bat from 1920 to 21. So
What?
sells for $1.85 million. So Rob, if you got one of those in your collection, you're doing all right.
How can you trust something from 1920 to be
Well,
authentic?
they were able to authenticate it from older photos. Like they matched the grain of the bat to
What?
the actual bat. So it's the DNA of baseball memorabilia.
Uh,
I know. Hey, listen, put your baseball cards away. Start buying some hockey sticks and some
yeah, right.
baseball bats and some, Mark Mosley's cleat, when that kind of stuff. It's crazy, but I think the previous record was, I knew it. It's just escaping me, having a moment kind of thing. But listen, if I had the money, I would be happy to have a Babe Ruth bat hanging on my living room wall. That would be outstanding.
Yeah.
Big money in that memorabilia. And like I said, Alvin, who I met, was one of the nurses that helped take care of Stephen when he first went through his condition. And he's a big sports memorabilia guy. So Alvin, I don't know where you've been, but we were going to advertise on the show. He's got a stockpile of sneakers that are worth a fortune. So Alvin, if you're listening, jump back into the fray here. We'll give you a little plug on the show, and maybe Rob, sitting right there, the producer, might be interested in a couple of pairs of those sneakers you got stashed away.
What size is he?
No, I don't know, but I know he's got quite a stockpile, Rob. So Rob, last week we had Andrew Caroline from, former teammate of mine, as our loyal appreciation segment, and he brought up a point about, what could we add to the show, and I thought about his comment was saying, yeah, maybe do a book review or something like that. But I want to keep it toward sports book reviews. And obviously, I've read tons of sports books, and this was a difficult decision for me. So I'm going to give my Sports with Mono and Mono sports book recommendation this week. It was a book by Dave Manassas called When Pride Still Mattered. And it was about Vince Lombardi and the Packers, and it was just, it really is indicative of what kind of a coaching genius this guy was, and the difficulty he had relating to these players, which when we look back at the old highlights now and see, right, Paul Hornung and Jerry Kramer and Jim Taylor and those guys, and he took them from obscurity and built them into a championship caliber team. In the book, I can't recommend it enough. If you really, it's more. It's not even just about it's the history. It's about Vince Lombardi and his journey through, and what he thought needed to be conveyed to a team to get them to that next level, and he did it. I don't know if you ever read it, Rob, but I read it. I think I actually read it twice because it was that good. So Andrew, thank you for your recommendation, and we'll continue to do that on Sports with Mono and Mono going forward. Because I got a bunch of sports books. I got the next 6 weeks covered, so don't worry about that.
There you go.
But Rob, if you ever wanted to read a book, you're stuck at a hotel in the Catskills or stuck on the tarmac on a plane, it's a great book to read. Rob, so last week we had the unique opportunity not to have any notable passings. And, this week it's kind of light, but there was one notable from the world of sports. May not resonate with a lot of people, but I vaguely remember him. Ken Buchanan was a Scottish former lightweight champion boxer. And it was notable because, he was considered obviously tough as nails and held a couple of belts. But notable was his 1972 fight with Roberto Duran at Madison Square Garden. And it was like, a slugfest the whole way. And then there was some controversy at the end where Buchanan goes down. He was 77 years old, by the way. But he goes down and he claimed he was kneed in the groin area. And the ref said, no, it was just it was a punch to the midsection kind of thing, but it wasn't that low. And Durant gets the decision, and it kind of changed the course of Ken Buchanan's career. And then obviously Durant from 72 on with the right up to the Leonard fights and stuff was just a great boxer. Obviously, Hands of Stone was his nickname. But that was notable, I thought. Ken Buchanan was 77.
Works.
And Rob, there was one name I forgot to mention. It was kind of from the world of entertainment and music, which from a notable passings perspective, we do. There was an old singer and really was only 71 years old, but had his number one hit back in 1978. It was Bobby Caldwell. And Bobby Caldwell, I actually knew his wife, worked with her, like 20 years ago, my former job. And I remember talking about him, and I worked with a guy from a music perspective that said, yes, Bobby Caldwell was notable. He was 71, but his number one hit was What You Won't Do for Love. And I know a lot of people don't say that or may not know that song. I think if you heard it, you would. But that was kind of notable from the world of music. Had a good career, this guy. And Mike Garvey comment on oh yes, I know.
Bobby Caldwell is.
It was a music.
Bobby Caldwell is Bobby, right? Bobby Caldwell.
Bobby, yeah.
He's big in the yacht rock genre.
Yeah.
Yacht rock.
I don't know if he's big. I don't know that genre. No, I don't know. But Rob, we just got to comment.
Your wheelhouse.
What, 78?
Well, yacht rock is the soft rock from the late 70s to early 80s.
Yeah, like Bread, right? Those bands, Bread.
Christopher Cross, Ambrosia.
It's funny that you said that. I was just listening yesterday. I like Christopher Cross a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have Sirius XM in your car, it's not out yet. Memorial Day weekend it usually debuts. It's called Yacht Rock. It's all that poppy soft rock.
On Pandora, you push 60s, 70s, and 80s music, you'll hear Christopher Cross all day long. Great. Yeah. And Rob, we just got a comment from Mike Garvey about sports books, which he just brought up, called Balls. We'll bring that up next week, Mike, but I know exactly what that book is. And I don't know if I read it, to be quite honest. So you'll have to send us a review, and we'll give the review on air next week. Right? So, Rob, it's Easter Sunday tomorrow, and I wish you and all your family a happy Easter, and may jelly beans rain upon you. And, I brought my Easter baskets to my grandkids yesterday. Love those guys. And, it's baseball season. My granddaughter had her first softball practice yesterday. Logan's been mixing in baseball and going to the high school, Mendham High School, and practicing, playing anything to do with football. It's just great time of year, and it's spring, and finally we can get out of the house and stay out of the house for the next 5-6 months. So it's exciting. But
Well,
Rod, thanks for. Go ahead.
Thank God I didn't have that game today, because I would have froze my butt off this morning.
Yeah, but it's still a sunny, beautiful day in New Jersey. There'll be plenty of time for games.
And I expect to see you in about 2 weeks at, in Rutherford for St. Joe's at St. Mary's.
Okay. Sounds good, Rob. So what are we doing next week? Are we on for Saturday or Sunday? So our audience can set their schedule.
I think next week, again, unless the game is canceled, next week is Sunday.
Okay. All right, folks. Again, thanks for joining us, and send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. Rob, enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you folks next week.
Yep. Happy Easter.
You too, guys.